Hey guys, welcome back to Rivian Updates. My name is Isaiah. R2 is less than a year away, really 6 months away from the first deliveries of R2. R2 is expected the first half of 2026. We are 6 months away from 2026. I am super excited. Time is going by fast. Just a year ago, I was at the R2 event. I can't believe it's been a year already, but just yesterday, the CEO of Rivian, RJ Scaringe, shared more videos and images, as well as Rivian, of the R2 in this new silver color. Now, you guys know, I drive an LA Silver R1T. Silver is the best Rivian color. I don't care. All right, it's true. You're mad. Canyon Yellow is great. Okay, Red Canyon's great. Storm Blue is great. Rivian's Blue is great. Hey, Forest Green is awesome. Launch Green. I love them all, but LA Silver takes the cake. But this new silver that we're seeing for R2, man, this thing looks absolutely stunning. Now, I actually said if Rivian comes out with a Canyon Yellow version of the R2, I would get that, but I take that back. If we get this silver and it goes into production, which Rivian intends to, then yeah, I might get this silver instead. This thing looks sweet. Now, there isn't a lot to talk about here, right? We're seeing a new R2 in New York. The R2 will be in New York till like June 5th. So if you're in the area, head out to New York. Get there, see the R2. In fact, I will be up in New York later in June or early July, depending on how my road trip goes, but I will be road tripping my R1T up the entire East Coast. So there'll be a lot of Rivian infrastructure and things to see. And I'm hoping we see another R2 tour, right? When the Rivian R2 first came out, immediately they started putting this thing out at Advance, showing it at other Rivian spaces for people to see. It's been a while since we've seen the R2 in public again. So hopefully we get another R2 tour with more dates and I will be able to see the R2 again. So you guys get more videos and content of what the R2 looks like. Now, the biggest part of this video has got to be the charge port. It has been moved. Now, from launch, people complained of the R2's charging port being in the back rear, passenger rear, right? The opposite side of where we see the Tesla Supercharger and directly across from where we see the R1 charge port. Now, the reason it was in the back rear was two main reasons, that being Rivian really wanted to prioritize curbside charging for the R2, I imagine especially for those European markets, but also we didn't get an idea of what the 1.5 version of the Rivian Adventure Network station stall would look like. And so I think they were just focused on version 1. And with the orientation of the version 1 stalls, the charge port would really have to be in the back rear, matching the side orientation of the driver's side front, like we see in the R1. So driver's side front, passenger rear, those are across each other, but they've moved it now to the driver's side rear, matching that of the Tesla vehicles, which I think is a very smart choice. We are going to see the 2026 Rivian R1s, which will have native NACS, or expected to have native NACS, but at this point, I mean, it's kind of like known that they're going to have native NACS at this point. But the charge port is still in the same place, that being the driver's front, meaning that regardless, you're going to have to take 2 spots when you go to a version 3 Tesla Supercharger. Most Tesla Superchargers are version 3s that you're able to access as a non-Tesla. And so that means that you're taking up 2 spots with a NACS R1. And giving a vehicle a NACS port and not moving the charge port seems really dumb to me. Hopefully Rivian changes it, but I don't expect that they will. For R2, on the other hand, they've moved the charge port to the driver's rear, which means in the same place as Tesla vehicles, which means at version 3 Tesla Supercharger sites, you won't have to take up 2 stalls. You'll park exactly like a Tesla. Now, the only downside to this, at least to me, is towing. The charge port is in the back rear, which means if you are towing something and most Tesla Superchargers don't have tow spots, you got to unhitch what you're towing just to supercharge and then hitch it back again and then drive off, which just seems really inconvenient. With it being in the front, you're able to just kind of pull in, which is perfect. But with the R2 probably not being a vehicle that you're going to use to tow often, I imagine some people will, but you're not going to be towing as much for the R2. And so putting the charge port on the driver's rear means that you're gonna have to unhitch whatever you have. Now, taking a look at this charge port, I gotta say it is hidden really well. It's kind of on the same body line as where the charge port is for the R1. Of course, the R1 charge port is in the front, but it follows kind of like that front corner line. And you look at the opposite side of the R1 where there isn't a charge port, and right, you see that kind of flowing line. For R2, it's on the rear, but it still follows that rear back line very well. It's hidden super, super well. Now, before I head out, I want to talk about this article that recently came out. Rivian's R2 will underpin all future Volkswagen EVs, exec says. Wasim bin Said, the chief software officer, as well as the co-CEO of the Rivian Volkswagen joint venture, said that the R2, quote, is the platform that will underpin actually all future EV products at Volkswagen, which the article makes it seem like something that's new and that, oh, this is new information. Really, we've known about this for quite some time. That low voltage architecture that controls this entire vehicle's functions, that also is a direct lead of the software of the vehicle, right, is going to underpin the R2. And this same technology is going to be carried over and shared with Volkswagen vehicles, the next generation of Volkswagen vehicles that is going to be using this Rivian Volkswagen architecture. Recently, Rivian and RJ have been sharing with us a ton of pictures, videos, diagrams, images of the R2, and kind of giving us a glimpse at what the validation builds are, right? What they're working on, what the hardware improvements and efficiency gains are compared to the Gen 2 Rivians. And one of that, 60% less inline connectors on the R2 compared to the Gen 2 R1s. That is 2.3 miles of length less of wiring harnesses in R2 compared to the R1 Gen 2. And of course, R1's a bigger vehicle, but 60% less inline connectors. Gen 2 Rivians are already a huge improvement over Gen 1. R2 is going to be a huge improvement over Gen 2, and it has to be scalable for those Volkswagen vehicles. Of course, they're also getting another $1 billion investment for Volkswagen for hitting that second quarter of gross margin positive. But this is just great, right? Great news. R2 is getting closer, and closer. We are likely within the coming days, weeks, months to see these validation builds of the R2 on the road for testing. They got to go through ADAS testing, right? Suspension testing, all of this in public, right? To get an idea of how it is in real world conditions. We've already heard news that Rivian was testing the R2 in Arizona at a Toyota facility to actually drive the R2. RJ said that that's what they were doing. To get it on the real roads, that's when things are going to get special. And that's when you and I are going to get a good look at what the R2 looks like in the wild. But it's super exciting. Last thing I'll touch on, no LiDAR. This is something that people have been kind of talking about. I've actually had people ask me, hey, Isaiah, is that LiDAR that's going to come onto the R2? The reason people said this is because there was a picture of the R2 going through the new paint shop for Rivian. And this picture showed the metal body of R2, right, going into this primer paint for the paint shop. Point being, there was a giant cutout where typically LiDAR would be, but I highly doubt we would be getting LiDAR for R2. I've kind of shut that down multiple times at this point. Not only does it not make sense to introduce LiDAR on R2 when you have R1, I mean, it would make sense to introduce something new like this on your R1 vehicles. R1 is lower volume, right? It's a more premium product. You're able to test things out like LiDAR on these vehicles. Testing it out on R2 could work, but they're trying to make sure that R2 is as cost competitive as possible. Adding the $100 a unit of LiDAR to R2, is that something that they want to do? On top of that, it's also been mentioned that unlike R1 vehicles, which have antennas, the antennas in R2 are going to be hidden within the vehicle. And so this is likely where this antenna would be. Also, all of the ADAS and front-facing cameras housing that you see on a vehicle is kind of like right below that. And so I just imagine there's going to be a ton of sensors and ECUs and computers and all that junk in there, antennas that are going to be for R2. But no, I don't think we are going to be getting LiDAR, at least anytime soon. I would expect to see LiDAR introduced on R1. Yeah, this wasn't a super structured video. Thought I would just kind of talk to the camera, let you guys know what's going on in the R2 world, but it is super exciting. Look, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Isaiah. This is Rivian Updates, and I'll see you guys in the next one.